Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Siyata Parakamaram Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Sri Rupam Sagaditam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakan Vitam Stam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shami Tanam Namaste Sarasati Devi Guruvani Pachari Nirvishesa Sunivadi Praskata De Sarari Om Agyanati Maranda Shanganangana Saraka Chaksurun Minitam Yana Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Shayam Rupa Karamayam Dharati Swaparandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagaditam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakan Vitam Stam Namo Brahmanya Devaya Govardhanitaya Jagaritaya Krishnaya Govinaya Namo Namah Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Daduja Mangalam Panidikakshav Mangarayatunu Om Narayana Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodayate Om Mahadevi Vidmahi Vishnu Padniti Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodayate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hari Priya Namastubhyam Hari Tapta Kanchana Godangi Radhe Vindavaneshware Vishavanusute Devi Pranamani Priyam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to Motivational Monday. Jean, Manasaganga, Brent, John Malik. I think John Malik's the source of all the hearts and all the stars and all the thumbs up coming up like a fireworks show to start off this week. We thank you for that. The more activity we have, that Facebook discerns, the higher they put us and the more exposure we get to people in general. So thank you very much for that. Keep it up. You're welcome to hit those thumbs up and those little hearts as much as you like during the course of any of our sessions. There's another flurry indeed. Thank you very much. Govinda Dave, good morning. Brent gave a nice talk last night. Attitude of gratitude. Rakesh. We're launching out into a new verse, the 46th verse, in the same chapter, the 8th chapter, the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We've entitled our talk today, Yudhisthira's Lament. Vyashavadya Ishvara Hanjanam, Krishnaya Adbhuta Karmanam, Prabodhito Pitashir, Nadbhujata Sucharpita. Translation, as it's narrated by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. This has to do with Maharaj Parikshit's uncle, King Yudhisthira. It is described he was very much aggrieved after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, that on his account, that he might be king, so many warriors were killed, so many ladies were widowed, so many children were orphaned, and he was not able to throw off that grief in spite of having been counseled by great sages, headed by Mahamuni Kimbha Parishara, the very incarnation of the Lord, the literary incarnation of the Lord himself, Vyasadeva. Krishna himself tried to remove the grief from the shoulders and mind of Yudhisthira by giving him counsel. And in the course of Krishna trying to remove Yudhisthira's grief, one of the adjectives which is used to refer to him is the performer of superhuman feats. And yet that performer of superhuman feats, neither in his literary incarnation nor in his original incarnation as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was able to relieve Yudhisthira of his mortification on account of the massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra. After all, Duryodhana may not have been a God-conscious person. He may have had envy and jealousy of Yudhisthira and his relationship with Krishna, but he was materially competent. Things were administered adequately. You might even say above average during the administration, although Duryodhana came about the post of administrator illicitly, it's safe to say that he did a fairly creditable job of managing the state and providing shelter and protection for the citizens. So in one sense, there was no need of the war taking place. Yudhisthira and his brothers could have simply stood down, and they were, in fact, inclined to do so. But Krishna insisted that Duryodhana be replaced on the principle of justice. In the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam, we find a pivotal verse here. It has to do with a Brahmin and his wife who were copulating in the forest. And the Brahmin was mistaken for a deer and shot. I forget the name of the fellow, but he had been cursed because he accidentally ate flesh. Someone had put flesh in his food. He didn't know it. He accidentally ate flesh. So his guru cursed him to be a flesh eater, to have that taste like a vampire for flesh. And so as he roamed about looking for flesh, he mistook this Brahmin in the forest for a deer, and he shot him right in the middle of, he aimed at him. And let me also add that he had a special taste for human flesh. This was the nature of the curse, that not only was he cursed to develop an appetite for flesh, but particular fondness for human flesh. Later on, the curse was removed. Anyway, he's got the Brahmin in his sights, and the Brahmin's wife makes an appeal for mercy, that he spare her husband. She says, Deho yam manusho rajan, my dear king, Deho yam manusho, this human form of life, purusharsh akilajatam, is distinguished from all the other 8,400,000 species of life in as much as one can achieve perfection. In human life, you can achieve things that you cannot achieve were you to take birth in the lower species of life. Tajmadasha bado viryam sarvata bada uchate. So please spare this Brahman's life. He is very pure. He's on the path of devotional service. He's likely to achieve pure love of God in this very lifetime. And if you kill him, you will kill all the benefits of the human form of life. The idea is that the human form of life is a unique opportunity to achieve the highest success in life. Narottam Das Thakur is saying, Hari Hari Vipale Janama Goyinu Manusha Janma Paya Radha Krishna Bajaya Jani Ashuna Bishaya Kananu. There's nothing that can be compared to the value of the human form of life, because in the human form of life, and only in the human form of life, one can understand the instructions of Krishna and attain the Parama Purusha, the highest prophet, and fulfill the mission of going back to home, back to Godhead. So Yudhisthira, this is the source of his unhappiness. This is also the reason why Krishna wanted to replace Duryodhana. So first of all, Yudhisthira is happy because so many human beings have been cut down during the battle of Kurukshetra. There's so much potential in the human form of life that any human being who fails to fulfill his natural lifespan, who's cut down in a violent, untimely way, there is so much unfulfilled potential there, so much that could have happened, could have fructified, but didn't because of an untimely, violent end. Yudhisthira says, that's all on me. These hundreds of thousands of warriors, husbands, fathers, kings, had they been allowed to live out their lifespan, could have done so much good work for the people. Even Duryodhana, as we mentioned, he was doing a creditable job. So Yudhisthira was thinking, how much sin? There's no way I can get rid of this sin. He gives the example that a pot that has contained liquor, you pour out the liquor, and then you try to clean it by using, you pour out the liquor, which has contaminated in the first place. Then you bring liquor and you use liquor to try and clean the pot. It's not possible. So he said, have I not incurred a vast, fathomless amount of sin that all these warriors died so that I could become king? And then using this position, which I've attained illicitly on the bones of so many slain warriors, how can I perform enough sacrifices atonement with the right motivation to ever wipe the slate clean. So he feels, really, this is classic depression. This is deep, dark depression, and someone who's in that level of depression, obviously they're entertaining suicidal thoughts. Every living being in any species of life is a pleasure-seeking being. Each and every one of us, the symptom of life, wherever you see life, there is a hankering for happiness. The only problem is, in this material world, we've come to the wrong place looking for happiness. It's like if you are thirsty, you want water, but you make the mistake of going to the desert in order to find the water. You're not going to find the water in the desert because water is not to be found in the desert. You may think you see water in the desert, but that's just an illusion. That's just, what do they call, a mirage. So we all want happiness. There's no argument about that. It's common to every one of us. But those of us who have come to the material world have come to the wrong place in order to achieve happiness. However, there is a concession that within this material world, of all the uncountable trillions and billions of souls, if you get the opportunity to possess a human body, you can start out by fulfilling the principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, economic development, religiosity, piety, sense gratification, ultimate liberation. Get yourself in a regulated program for advancement, for purification, and then after further progress, Varnavashada Purushaya Param Vishnu Radhite Pantanyanyata Tushikara. As a result of going up the ladder of the Varnashram levels of society, one finally graduates, one finally comes to the level of love of Radha and Krishna. So taking a human body indicates that one is potentially very close to getting back out of this material world. It may have been hundreds of thousands of incarnations that we've been learning in this material world, but the best hope, the best loophole, the best escape hatch is the human form of life. That's recognized even in the materialistic society. Killing hundreds of thousands of animals in slaughterhouses, no one gives that a second thought. No one cares about those. But there are still, even in an atheistic, self-centered, materialistic society, there's still the most stringent laws surrounding the killing of human beings. Hundreds of thousands of animals are killed every day, and we don't think anything of it. But you kill one human being, the full weight of the secular law comes onto you. Why? Because the human form of life is very important in executing the mission of life. So Krishna himself is designated as the performer of superhuman activities, but in this instance, he cannot lift the depression. He cannot relieve Yudhisthira of these defeatist, negative thoughts. He cannot convince him. And so it could be said that he failed in this case as a superhuman actor. That is not the case. That is a misunderstanding. Krishna is in the heart. Sarvasya chaham ridi shanivishto jnanam apohanam. He's in the heart as the super soul of all living beings. He can allow words to take their effect, or he can disallow words to take their effect. And when he spoke to Yudhisthira, he did not allow, from within the heart of Yudhisthira, Krishna, who is speaking externally, the internal Krishna, did not allow Yudhisthira to be convinced by the words of Vyasadeva, did not allow him to be convinced by the words of great saints and sages, did not even allow Vyasadeva to be convinced by Krishna's own words, who is a super soul within the heart. And why is all of that? Because he wanted Yudhisthira to be convinced by the words of another great devotee of his named Bhishma. Now, here's the other point that Krishna's making. The Brahmin lady appealed for the life of her husband. Deho yam manusha purusha shakararam. Don't kill my husband. He's in the human form. Not only is he human form, but he's a Brahmin. Not only is he a Brahmin, but he's a devotee. He has every chance of escaping the cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. And as his wife, I will go wherever he goes. Okay. Yudhisthira's depression stems from the fact that so much potential is destroyed. So many human beings with all of their potential good works have all been truncated by the battle of Kurukshetra. But here's Krishna's point, and this overrides Yudhisthira's individual point of view. What Yudhisthira is feeling is subjective, but Krishna is always objective. You've heard the example more times than we can count. We say the sun is covered by the cloud. Sun can never be covered by the cloud. Cloud only takes up a few hundred square feet on the surface of the earth. But because of our limited position, when we look up and see the cloud between us and the sun, we say the sun is covering the cloud. The cloud is covering the sun, I'm sorry. It's not a fact, but it seems to be so from our limited position. So whatever we feel, whatever conclusions we come up to based on the processing from our senses, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking, is going to be limited because we live under the cloud of Maya. We live limitedly in time and space. We're tiny little souls, 1/10,000th, the tip of the hair. So whatever conclusions we come to, and Yudhisthira was the best of the best. He was known as a paragon of righteousness. He never told a lie. He was detached. He left for the forest after having been cheated of his kingdom in the gambling match. He always behaved in a gentle, mild way. He never got carried away by his emotions. He was the most pious, the most righteous person who walked the face of the earth at that time. But nevertheless, his point of view was limited. It was screened through the limitations of his material senses and material mind. Whereas Krishna's point of view is always factual. It's always objective. And even though Krishna incited Yudhisthira and Arjuna to go ahead with the battle at a time when Yudhisthira and Arjuna were inclined to back down, they were inclined to say, let bygones be bygones. Duryodhana is doing an adequate job. Taxes are being paid. The poor are being cared for. The roads are being maintained. The criminals are not harassing the innocent citizens. There are wells being dug. The cows are being protected. There are old age homes. Arjuna, at a time when Arjuna, Yudhisthira, and their other three brothers were willing to back down and fade into the background, Krishna incited them to go ahead with the war for the very same reason that Yudhisthira is lamenting. The reason is that the human form of life is very valuable. And the one thing that Duryodhana could not do was the main thing. The main thing is to go back to home, back to Godhead. So you have to keep the main thing as the main thing. That's why Krishna insisted on the war, so that the main thing stayed the main thing. And he would not let Duryodhana make the main thing, take the main thing off the table. The only person who had the vision, the character, the integrity, and the devotion to reestablish the main thing as the main thing was Yudhisthira. So for the same reason that Yudhisthira lamented the death of so many human beings, for that very same reason, the unique value of the human form of life, Krishna insisted that Yudhisthira be the king and Duryodhana be replaced. Because with Duryodhana as the king, nobody, although what to speak of the soldiers who died during the Battle of Kurukshetra, they were, as many as there were, they were a relative minority, but the whole entirety of the population was being cheated of the opportunity to go back to home, back to Godhead, as long as the king Duryodhana was in position. You might remember that famous quote of Venu Maharaj. Venu Maharaj, as soon as he took over the kingdom, he stopped the sacrifice, he stopped the worship of Vishnu. And when the Brahmins came to him very humbly and said, "O king, It is the Lord who is our provider, it's the Lord who is our maintainer. And when we perform sacrifices to the Lord, he's very happy. And so we get good crops, rainfall, everything that we need is provided to us by the Lord, who is happy as a result of our sacrifice. Now you've stopped our sacrifices, so you're going to be the cause of misfortune in the kingdom. You're going to be the cause of people suffering. So rather than take the wisdom which was being offered to him, Vena said, said, you Brahmins, you priests are out of touch. You're like children who disregard your real father who maintains you and go looking for somebody else. So the king is actually God. It is due to my powers, my sitting on the throne, that you get everything you need. But you conjure up this invisible, ineffable, indescribable, supreme other out of naivete and disrespect for your king. You should actually bow down and worship me as God. So at that point, of course, if you know the story, the Brahmins killed him. They killed him. Someone might say, well, I mean, why did they have to kill him? He was doing a credible job of administering the kingdom. But the point is that our Shreya, our ultimate benefit, comes from connecting, from yoking, from which the word yoga comes, to the Lord. How can the part be happy disconnected from the whole? A leaf disconnected from a tree is all yellow, dried out, withered. We just swept the back porch here of our ashram. It's kind of got a concrete deck. And because of the falling of the leaves in the autumn season, big piles of leaves, and the wind blows, and then of course it blows the leaves up against the house, and so they accumulate there, and there are big piles of leaves. So, and they're all dried up and they're useless. They have no function anymore because they're detached from the tree. So we swept all the leaves off the deck, and then there was a breeze in the afternoon and it pushed them all back again. So how can the leaf be happy, feel purpose, get the pleasure it seeks when it's detached from the tree? It loses all symptoms of life, all vitality, all nutrition, all strength, all potency. So the Brahmins killed Vena. They killed him because you cannot have such a person in a position of influence and authority. And at the same time, people marching progressively back to home, back to Godhead. There has to be a God-centered society so that people can capitalize on the rare opportunity of human form of life. Krishna explained all this to Yudhisthira, but it did not find a place in his heart by Krishna's arrangement. And now again, another question might be, Yudhisthira was bigger than that. He was a pure devotee. He had faith. He had childlike trust in Krishna. So why is he now, after the battle of Kurukshetra, rethinking everything? He fought. He did his duty. He got his own quota. He killed his own quota of opponents. There's nobody could fault Yudhisthira, although he was gentle, he was brahminical, he was detached. When it came time to fight, he did his job. He wasn't like a Bhima or an Arjuna, but he was pretty formidable. If you read the story of the 18-day war, Yudhisthira took his toll. He fought like a great hero, and he downed a significant number of the enemies. So now when he should be celebrating, doing his dance in the end zone, he's all down, his shoulders are sloped, he's dragging on the floor, crying. It seems to be subject to the same kind of grief that an ordinary man without knowledge of the soul, of the spirit, the eternality of a living being, seems to be acting just like an ordinary person. Well, that is also due to the will of the Lord who is within the heart. It appears that Yudhisthira is deluded by worldly affection. This is by the will of the Lord, so that then Yudhisthira can be properly instructed by Bhisma. So this is again reminiscent of the way Krishna sets up the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna also appears to be suffering from the same sort of delusions that a common man would suffer from. He balks at the idea of fighting and killing his teachers and his brothers. And this sets up the scene for Krishna to speak the whole 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Without Arjuna's delusion, without Arjuna's depression, there would not have been the opening, the opportunity for Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So it's kind of deja vu now. Without Yudhisthira's apparent delusion, without Yudhisthira's apparently being affected by the circumstances, just like a common man, there would not have been the opportunity for Bhisma to speak the whole of his counsel to Yudhisthira. Now, those who are on the level of devotion, like Yudhisthira and Arjuna, they know very well that the living entity is different from the body and the mind, that the spirit soul, the Atma, which inhabits and animates each and every body, is transcendental to anything material. A common man thinks of violence and nonviolence in terms of this body, but that is a delusion. One of the first things that Krishna teaches Arjuna or reminds Arjuna of, right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, is that never was there a time when you did not exist, nor I, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Opportunity for a few verses of my rap song, Shining Soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies. It yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. From dust you come, to dust you go. Was not spoken of the soul. This body, like a set of clothes, wears out and gets disposed. Flame of light and love gives life to the machine. A candle never snuffs, subtle, sublime, unseen. The soul, for the soul, there's no beginning, ending. It is none, small in the atom, brighter than the sun. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies, yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual sky. Now, here's the key verse. This verse describes how it is that the soul never dies. The soul can never kill, nor can the soul ever be killed. The inner soul continues when the outer body ends, like flame from wood, sparks ascending, transcending dark matter, blending with the sky, invisible to the naked eye. You cannot kill, nor can you die. You cannot burn, nor can you fry. The soul cannot be scorched by any blaze. No water can drown the spirit. No wind can make it fade. You cannot cut another, nor can you bleed. The soul is eternal, unseen, invisible, forever free from birth, death, old age, and disease. Yet howsoever turned or tossed, the soul can never exhaust, seated in the heart, beating its drum, powering everyone. The soul's superior force lives on and runs its endless course in God's unlimited universe. This same teaching, what to speak of Arjuna and Yudhisthira, who at various stages in their lives seem to have forgotten the basic truth of the eternality of the soul. We have a similar quote from guess who in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Guess who's speaking about the eternality of the soul? The person you'd least expect, Kamsa, after he's killed 6 of Devaki's sons to protect his own body, killed little babies shortly after having been born, right in front of their mother and father. And then when he thought the 8th child was there, and even though it was a female, he wanted to make sure. So he tried to kill Devaki's, what seemed to be Devaki's 8th child, which was a female. She eluded his grasp, flew up in the sky, laughed at him, said, the one that's killed you has already been born elsewhere and taken elsewhere. And then she flew away. That was Subhadra Yogamaya. So then Kamsa, he's trying to console his sister after he's killed 6 of her sons and just tried to kill her 8th child. He says, Yavadato Shmi Hanta Shmi. Those who think they've killed, Hiatmanam Manyate Shadik, or they can kill or they can be killed. Tavad Tadabhimana Agyo. They do not know things as they are. Bada Bara Karamaya. Kamsa saying to Devaki. And sometimes it's surprising. Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, big demons, they come up with these startling, insightful comments, which are right on the money. Ravana was also very learned. He knew scriptures back and forward. The problem is they don't follow it. They know what's right. They know what's wrong. Nivriti-cha, pravitim-cha. They know what should be done, and they know what should not be done. But what makes them demons, what distinguishes them from the hallowed, exalted devotees of the Lord, is that they don't follow. In spite of speaking learned words, they are in fact preoccupied with that which is not worthy of grief. So in the bodily conception, one remains in darkness without self-realization, thinking, I am being killed, or I am killing my enemies. As long as a foolish person, no matter what high-sounding words they speak, their actions show that they do consider the self to be the killer, the killed, that he continues to be responsible for material obligations and consequently suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. And this is another key difference between Duryodhana and Yudhisthira. Another reason why Duryodhana had to be removed and Yudhisthira installed as the king. Again, it is Kamsa who's speaking to Devaki. And he says, Soka harsha bayadveshti, lamentation, hankering, fear, envy, loba, moha, madanvita, madness, illusion, loba, moha, viradhanam, ye, grinati, ye, it's yoba, moha, vitam, grinati, pasyanti che. Those who they try to solve their problems by killing the immediate cause. Isn't our current society just like that? If we have a problem, a mosquito bothers us, or a virus, or if there's anything that's mice or cockroach, we have pests, we have pest control, we have all kinds of companies which hire themselves out to kill anything that's causing us the slightest bit of inconvenience. So we're identifying the immediate cause, but overlooking the remote cause. The ultimate cause why anything happens to us is God. Nothing is allowed to happen outside of God's awareness. Some things which are even seem to be meant for our harm, if we pass the test and stay in faith, God knows how to do them, how to use them for our good. So the difference between Yudhisthira and Duryodhana, a fundamental difference in their outlook, is that Yudhisthira never reacted to the provocation. He never accepted that Duryodhana was the main cause of his suffering, but he saw the remote cause as Krishna. Krishna was using Duryodhana in order to purify, to make and mold Yudhisthira. So he didn't even see Duryodhana as an enemy, because often our enemies put us in difficult situations, and as a result of those difficult situations, we grow and mature to a level that we could have never done had we been in our comfort zone. So people like Yudhisthira and other devotees of the Lord not only do not regard betrayers and conspirators and envious people as their enemies, they regard them as their friends, because they don't identify the immediate cause as the source of their suffering, but they see everything from the point of view of the remote cause. But one of the symptoms of those who disregard or are unaware or indifferent to the remote cause, and they want to deal piecemeal and fragmentally with each and everything that arises to cause them inconvenience or to put a challenge or a stumbling block in their way. Shoka harsha, they're full of hankering. Then they commit crimes to remove the obstacle in the way of their ambition. They feel lamentation, they feel fear, they feel envy, they feel greed, they feel illusion, they feel madness, because they're only focused on the immediate cause. But those who are focused on the remote cause are just the opposite. Krishna Bhakti Niskama Taiva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhika Shakarya Shanta. Devotees do not waste their time trying to counteract all the difficulties and the miseries of this material world. They tolerate them, knowing that it's all for our good. Nothing happens to us, but everything happens for us. That's why Duryodhana could not remain the executive head of state, because all of his solutions, so-called solutions to so-called problems, all had to do with the immediate cause, whereas Yudhisthira was the only one capable of the proper perspective of seeing everything from God's point of view and not running here and there, reacting to every little inconvenience and every little challenge. It is only the devotees of the Lord who know peace, because they see only the hand of Krishna in everything. And seeing the hand of Krishna and reflecting the philosophy of Krishna, they know that no one can kill, nor can anyone be killed. No one can cut, nor can anyone be cut. No one can burn, nor be burned. No one can drown or be drowned. No one can wither in the wind, nor be withered in the wind. Hato va prapshashi. And aside from being grounded in the philosophy of bhakti, there's the code of the Kshatriyas as well. Kshatriyas believed in investing the human form of life. And this is one of the points that Bhishma is going to bring up to Yudhisthira to help relieve him of his distress. Yudhisthira is saying every warrior entered into the conflict with his eyes wide open. Every warrior goes into every battle fully expecting to surrender his life on that battlefield. After all, everybody's trying to kill each other, so there's a real good chance that you will be killed. There's a real good chance that no matter how good you are, you're going to meet someone better, or someone else is going to be lucky. It's going to be somebody else's lucky day, and they're going to get you, and you're going to lay it on your life on the battlefield. No warrior goes into battle expecting to survive. They're surprised if they do survive. What they expect is to lay down their life. Now, if it's in a right cause, if they expire with wounds that are received on their front and not on their back, because that would have meant they were cowardly and retreating, it is said by Krishna, their fate is very exalted. Hato va prapshashi sargam. Warriors killed by wounds on the front of their bodies during a righteous fight, they attain the heavenly planets. Jikva ba boksha semahim. They achieve a higher level of pleasure. Earlier, I explained that we're all pleasure-seeking living beings. So the pleasure that warriors who lay down their lives properly on the battlefield receive in the afterlife is much, much hundreds of times greater than the pleasures, the standard of living that we experience in this life. Krishna says this to Arjuna, and Arjuna, of course, lives by that code. He's heard nothing else since the age of 5 years old. But Krishna is just reminding him. And through Arjuna, he's instructing all of us, do not mourn for what is not worthy of grief. He says, all the soldiers, they are trained for, their minds are predicated upon, they live for this opportunity. They come to the battle to fulfill the destiny of a warrior who is not meant to die in old age in bed, but who is meant to give up his life gloriously in the prime of youth in the middle of the battle. And if such is accomplished, Krishna says, Tajmo Tishta Kante Yudhaya Kritanash. Tajmo Tishta. They are elevated to the heavenly planet, specifically the abode of the sun god, Yudhaya Kritanishthira. And so their martial ability and their using their martial ability to contend with the enemies in a good fight, it is like the Brahmins offering ghee on the sacrificial fire and saying, Shah, when the samagri, the auspicious grains, are offered under the tongue of the flame of the oven, the fire, the Brahmins say, Shah, let it be consumed. Kshatriyas on both sides assembled there in the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra, fully expecting to give up their lives in the great yagya, in the great sacrifice, and to attain the heavenly planets. It's no accident that the first words of the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma Chetra Kurukshetra Samaveta Yudsva Mamakas Prabhamcha, for many, many thousands of years, the place of battle there at Kurukshetra had served as a place where saints and sages went to perform sacrifices. They lit the fire, they chanted the mantras, they offered the oblations into the mantras, and they said, Shaha, let it be consumed. So there's a epic analogy happening here that now the soldiers are coming to, according to their dharma, according to their position in society, they are themselves going to be the offerings into the fire. And just as those grains, the samagri is offered into the fire, and then it's transformed by the fire to something much more subtle and sublime, and it wafts upwards. Similarly, soldiers are going to lay down their gross bodies made of earth, air, fire, and water, and they will have been consecrated in the fire of the battle of Kurukshetra at the place of pilgrimage, and they will get a much better result in their next life. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow, kind of run out of time here. I find it fascinating, stimulating, and very instructional. This verse, which I'll read once again, we'll spend at least 2 days on this verse. It's again in the 8th chapter, which we've been on the 8th chapter for months now. Vyasadhyaya Ishware Hajara Krishnena Bhuta Karmana Prabodhira Britashya Nabhuta Sapitam. King Yudhisthira was much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyasadeva and the Lord himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. Really, really good discussion, good points. We'll continue on tomorrow. Not going to call on Rob today because he's ill. But hopefully, Rob, if you have any thoughts on the thought today, please give me your little takeaway hashtag things here. In the meantime, thank you very much, Rakesh, for joining us on Facebook Live. Jean Manasaganga with a very nice pranam emoji. Brent and John Malik, George Pratt. Govinda Dev gave the talk last Saturday night in Salt Lake City. And he said there were about 100 people that came to the Sunday feast. It reminded him of Janmashtami. So it's wonderful news up there in Salt Lake City. Gary, Montana. Thank you, Gary. I got a friend request from you recently. I hope that I accepted it. I'll revisit that and make sure I did. Thanks for joining us anyway, and thanks for your Dhanyavad pranams on Facebook. Back at you. Jay, Kara from Salt Lake City. Sundari Priya kind of heads up everything. She's become the default temple president up there, and she must be really happy as a result of her kindness and open-heartedness and welcoming spirit. We had 100 people at the Sunday feast on Saturday night. I credit Sundari Priya primarily with that. Raghav Sadotra, a new name here. Bhai Bobby says tons of interesting realizations. Yes, I think today was like a feast of realizations. My mind is incredibly stimulating. I hope the same is true for you all as well. Some thoughts for the entirety of the day. Killing human beings on this planet is the biggest sin. Exactly. That would indicate the great, unique value of the human form of life. Well, I'll let you get on to all of your duties today, and may you honor the Lord throughout and in all that you do. And when you have nothing else to do, have an attitude of gratitude by always chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.